Nobody expected this turn. Not after everything that had already come out, the clips, the reactions, the chaos that had taken over the internet. But what surfaced next changed the entire tone of the situation. Because according to multiple insiders, King Harris didn't stay silent this time. He acted, and not in anger, not in defiance, but in desperation. That's what makes this moment feel different, because the reports suggest that behind the scenes, King Harris allegedly reached out directly to 50 Cent, not publicly, not for attention, but privately trying to stop something before it goes too far. And when people say too far, they're not talking about headlines or online arguments. They're talking about a point of no return. Because if the rumors are true, then whatever is still inside that unreleased footage, it's worse than anything we've already seen. Now think about that. The clips that already leaked were enough to shake the internet, divide the industry, and raise serious questions about T.I. and his family dynamic. So if King Harris himself is stepping in, allegedly asking, even begging, for the rollout to stop, then what exactly is left in that documentary? What hasn't been shown yet? And why does it scare him enough to make that move? According to whispers that began spreading late, this wasn't just a casual message. It wasn't a simple, "Hey, chill." It was described as emotional, urgent, the kind of message that comes from someone who feels like everything around them is about to collapse. One insider even claimed that he wasn't trying to argue, he was trying to prevent something. Prevent what? That's the question nobody can answer right now. But the fact that he allegedly made that move says everything about how serious this situation has become. And here's the part that makes things even more intense. While King Harris is reportedly trying to stop things behind the scenes, 50 Cent hasn't slowed down at all. In fact, some people believe he's moving even more aggressively now. More hints, more pressure, more momentum building around the documentary. And that's what's turning this from simple drama into something much bigger. Because now, it's not just about what's already been exposed. It's about what's still coming and whether anyone can stop it. So the real question becomes, what did King Harris see or know that made him react like this? And why does it feel like we're standing right on the edge of something that could completely change the story? To understand that, you have to step back and look at the pressure he's been under this entire time. Because this isn't just about a documentary. This isn't just about viral clips. This is about a young man growing up in front of the entire world, while his family's image is being pulled apart piece by piece. King Harris didn't step into the spotlight by choice. He was born into it. From the beginning, his life has been public. Reality shows, interviews, social media, every stage of his life has been visible. People didn't just watch him appear. They watched him grow, evolve, struggle, and try to figure out who he is. And that kind of exposure comes with pressure. Heavy pressure. Because when your father is someone like T.I., a figure known for control, structure, and influence, people expect you to follow a certain path, a certain image, a certain standard. But King Harris didn't always move that way. He spoke his mind. He reacted emotionally. He had moments that went viral for all the wrong reasons. Moments where it felt like he was pushing back, not just against the public, but against the expectations placed on him. And every time that happened, the internet responded. Loudly, critically, relentlessly. And that kind of attention builds over time. Now imagine adding this situation on top of all that. A documentary that allegedly dives into private moments, family dynamics, conversations that were never meant for public viewing. At that point, it's no longer just pressure. It becomes exposure. Because insiders are saying that what we've seen so far is only a small part of something much bigger, just fragments. edited pieces pulled from a larger story that hasn't been fully revealed yet. And if that's true, then somewhere out there, there's a full version. Unreleased, unseen, waiting. Now put yourself in King Harris's position, knowing that there's footage out there, footage that could shape how the entire world sees you, your father, your family, and having absolutely no control over it. That's not just stressful, that's terrifying. And that's why this alleged message hits so differently. Because this isn't someone trying to defend themselves publicly. This is someone trying to stop something privately before it goes too far, before it reaches a point where nothing can be undone. Now bring 50 Cent back into the picture, because his role in all of this is what makes the situation even more complicated. 50 Cent isn't known for random moves. Everything he does has intention, strategy, timing. And if you look at when this documentary started gaining attention, it wasn't by accident. It came at a moment when the spotlight on T.I. and his family was already intense, when conversations were already building, when people were already paying attention. That's not coincidence. That's positioning. Because if you're in control of content like this, you don't just release everything at once. You build it. You pace it. You create momentum. You control how the story unfolds. And that's exactly what it feels like is happening. Each clip adds a layer. Each reaction fuels the next. Each moment pulls more people into the story. And that's why some believe this is bigger than entertainment. Because it's not just about what's being shown. It's about how it's being shown. And why. Then there's another layer that makes everything even more uncomfortable. Because some insiders are claiming that not all of the footage in this documentary was originally meant to be public. Let that sink in. There are whispers that certain clips may have come from older recordings, private archives, or content that was filmed for completely different purposes. And if that's true, then this situation becomes something else entirely. Because now it's not just about the content. It's about how it was obtained, how it was used, and whether it was ever meant to be seen in the first place. And that's exactly why the industry is so divided. On one side, people are calling it exposure. They believe that truth, no matter how uncomfortable, deserves to be seen. That if something is real, it shouldn't be hidden just to protect an image. But on the other side, people see it very differently. They see it as exploitation. They believe there are lines that shouldn't be crossed, especially when it comes to family, privacy, and moments that were never meant for the public. And right now, there's no middle ground. Just two completely different perspectives. And in the middle of all of it, silence. No clear response from T.I. No direct explanation from 50 Cent. No public statement from King Harris. And that silence is making everything feel even heavier. Because when something this big is happening, and nobody involved is speaking, it usually means one thing. There's more going on behind the scenes. And whatever that more is, it might be the part of the story that changes everything. But as the situation kept escalating, one thing became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just about clips anymore. It wasn't just about reactions or viral moments. It had crossed into something deeper, something more uncomfortable. Because while some people were still calling it exposure, others were now openly saying this had crossed a line. And right in the middle of all of it was King Harris. On one side, you have someone like 50 Cent, a figure known for control, strategy, and understanding exactly how to shape a narrative. Someone who isn't just releasing content, but controlling how that content is seen, discussed, and interpreted. And on the other side, you have King Harris himself. His life, his identity, his family, all being shaped in real time by how that content is presented to the world. That's not a position anyone wants to be in. Now really think about what that does to someone mentally. Every clip that drops, it's about you. Every reaction video, it's about you. Every comment, every debate, every viral post, it all circles back to your life, your family, your image. And the worst part, you have no control over any of it. That kind of pressure doesn't just sit on the surface, it builds, it grows, it weighs on you over time. So when you hear that King Harris allegedly reached out, that he tried to stop things before they went further, it doesn't sound shocking anymore. It sounds necessary. Because at a certain point, this stops being entertainment and starts becoming something that can actually damage people. And that's exactly where this situation feels like it is right now. Right on the edge, between content and consequence, between exposure and destruction. And the craziest part, we still don't know what's coming next. Because if what we've already seen caused this much chaos, if it divided the industry, shook public perception, and sparked debates across every platform, then what's still left in that documentary? What hasn't been released yet? What's still hidden? Because if King Harris is reacting like this behind the scenes, if he's allegedly trying to stop things, then whatever is coming next might be even bigger than anything we've seen so far. And that's where everything takes a turn. Because up until this point, it felt like things were happening around him. Clips were dropping. People were reacting. Narratives were being built. But now, he's directly in it. And according to multiple insiders, the moment he allegedly reached out to 50 Cent, that's when everything shifted. From public chaos to private confrontation. Because this was just a quick message. It wasn't just a "yo, chill." Sources claim it was a full conversation. Emotional, tense, uncomfortable. The kind of exchange where you can feel the pressure in every word, even without hearing it. Now, we don't have the exact messages. But people who claim to know about the situation keep repeating the same thing. King Harris wasn't speaking like someone trying to argue. He was speaking like someone trying to stop something before it got worse. And that detail matters. Because when someone moves like that, it usually means one thing. They know what's coming next. And that's where the real conflict begins. Because according to those same sources, 50 Cent didn't respond the way people expected. He didn't back down. He didn't slow the rollout. He didn't say, "Okay, let's pause." Instead, he allegedly stayed calm, cold, unbothered. And that response, it made everything worse. Because now you have two completely different energies colliding. On one side, someone trying to contain the situation. On the other, someone fully committed to pushing it forward. And when those two forces meet, that's when tension explodes. Because if King Harris is asking for this to stop, and it's not stopping, then what happens next? That's the question everyone started asking. And then came the first major twist. Because shortly after that alleged interaction, a new clip started circulating. And this one felt different, heavier, more serious. According to multiple reposts, this clip allegedly showed a moment involving King Harris that had never been seen before. And people immediately started calling it the most revealing yet. This wasn't just another piece of content. This was something that changed the tone of the entire situation. Because instead of just sparking debate, it sparked concern. People weren't just reacting anymore. They were uncomfortable. Comments started flooding in. This doesn't feel right. Why is this even out there? This is going too far. And that shift in reaction said everything. Because now it wasn't just about curiosity. It was about boundaries. And that's when people started connecting the dots. The timing felt too perfect. Right after King Harris allegedly reached out. Right after he tried to stop things. A new clip drops. For a lot of people, that didn't feel like coincidence. It felt like a response. Like a message. Like something being pushed forward, despite everything happening behind the scenes. And that's when the question started spreading. Is this personal now? Because before it felt like content, like storytelling, like controversy. But now, it feels targeted. And that changes everything. Because once something becomes personal, there's no going back. Now the situation gets even more complicated. Because while all of this is happening publicly, something else is building quietly behind the scenes. According to insiders, people close to T.I. are not happy at all. There are whispers of frustration, of anger, of serious discussions about stepping in more aggressively to stop what's happening. Now, what that actually means, nobody knows for sure. But the energy is shifting. Because this isn't just about clips anymore. This is about reputation, legacy, family. And when those things are involved, people don't move lightly. They move differently. Now add King Harris back into the center of this. A young man already dealing with pressure. Already under constant public scrutiny. Now watching his own life being turned into content in real time. That's not just stressful. That's a breaking point. And people are starting to feel that shift. Because the conversation online is changing. It's no longer just about what's in the documentary. It's about whether this should even be happening at all. And that's where the divide gets even deeper. Some people are still standing firm. Saying truth is truth, let it come out. They believe that no matter how uncomfortable it is, reality shouldn't be hidden. But others are pushing back harder than ever. Saying this has gone too far. That there are lines you don't cross. Especially when it involves family. Especially when it involves moments that were never meant to be public. And now there's no middle ground left. Just two sides. Two completely different perspectives. And a situation that keeps getting more intense by the minute. Because at this point, it's not just about what's already happened. It's about what's coming next. Will more clips drop? Will T.I. finally respond? Will 50 Cent double down even further? Or will something happen behind the scenes that changes everything before it goes any further? Nobody knows. And that's exactly why this situation feels so unpredictable, so unfinished, so far from over. Because right now, it feels like we're not at the end of the story. We're right in the middle of it. And whatever happens next, that's going to be the moment that defines everything. The situation had already been tense, but suddenly, everything felt different. What was once a series of clips dropping online and sparking discussion had evolved into something much larger, something deeper and far more unsettling. At first, viewers were split. Some insisted that the clips were simply part of a story being told. Truth is truth, they said. Let it out. Let people see the reality of the situation. But as more content surfaced, another perspective began to dominate the conversation. Wait a second, people started saying. This isn't just truth, this is exploitation. This is crossing a line. Somebody needs to stop this. And that shift in sentiment marked a critical turning point. The pressure that had once been concentrated on one or two individuals now expanded outward, touching everyone involved. It wasn't just about T.I. anymore. It wasn't even just about King Harris. Suddenly, 50 Cent was in the crosshairs too. People began questioning how far he would push this narrative, how much control he truly held, and whether he would continue pushing forward or finally step back. But if you think that was where the twists ended, think again. The story was far from over. In fact, a new twist had just appeared, and it made the entire situation even more unpredictable. According to a viral post circulating late at night, there could be more footage. Not just what had already been released, not just the clips that leaked, but additional content that hadn't been seen by the public. And according to that post, this was the content that the parties involved most didn't want out. Whether or not the post was accurate hardly mattered. The idea alone sent ripples through the community. People began imagining what could still be revealed, what else could potentially surface to further complicate matters. And as the speculation grew, the intensity of the situation escalated. It wasn't slowing down, it was accelerating. Every new post, every comment, every reaction fueled the next round of anticipation. And then came the question that everyone was really asking. What exactly was 50 Cent sitting on? How far was he willing to go with it? Because if King Harris was already trying to stop things behind the scenes and failing, then the implications of the unreleased content could be massive. Whatever was coming next might eclipse anything that had come before. And believe me, at this point, no one was taking anything for granted. Just when the public thought things couldn't possibly intensify any further, everything escalated overnight. A wave of new clips surfaced, longer, more detailed, and far more revealing than anything previously released. These weren't minor snippets meant to tease or spark a quick conversation. These clips were substantial. They were deliberate. They were impactful. And the moment they hit the internet, everything changed. The reaction was immediate. For the first time, people weren't responding merely with curiosity or debate. They were responding with genuine discomfort. Comments flooded in across platforms. "This isn't entertainment anymore," one person wrote. "Why does this feel so personal? Something about this doesn't sit right." And that collective unease was a clear signal. The content had crossed the boundary between observation and intrusion. When viewers stop seeing something as entertainment and start feeling uneasy or violated, it's a warning sign. It indicates that the material has moved into dangerous territory. And then came the next shocking revelation. As analysts and fans began dissecting the new clips, a pattern emerged, something that had gone unnoticed in earlier footage. These weren't just random moments captured on camera. They were carefully selected scenes, moments of tension, conflict, and vulnerability, strung together to create a specific narrative. Each clip added context to the previous one, gradually revealing dynamics and conflicts that hadn't been visible before. The sequence of events painted a story that didn't align with the image many had been accustomed to seeing. Think about that for a moment. A documentary at its core is meant to show a version of reality. But what happens when audiences begin noticing the deliberate choices behind what they are shown? Suddenly, the conversation shifts from "what is happening" to "why are we being shown this?" The question itself was enough to ignite another wave of debate. One viral comment summed it up succinctly: "This isn't just footage, this is editing with a purpose." And just like that, the discussion changed entirely. People were no longer merely debating what happened. They were questioning the intentions behind what had been shown. Meanwhile, the pressure behind the scenes had reached an entirely new level. According to insiders, T.I.'s camp was beginning to explore more aggressive measures. These weren't just statements to the press or public reactions anymore. The conversations had shifted toward strategic, calculated action, legal steps, patente, interventions, anything that could regain control over the narrative. When you get to this point, it's no longer just about public perception. It's about containment, about control, and about preserving the integrity of family and reputation. Exactly what those measures might entail is still unknown, but the mere fact that they are being considered highlights the seriousness of the situation. When lawyers and strategic advisors enter the picture, the stakes escalate rapidly. What started as a story unfolding online could quickly transform into a full-blown legal and reputational battle. And just when people thought they could predict the next move, another twist emerged, one that caught everyone completely off guard. A post began circulating claiming that King Harris had reached out again, not once but twice. And this second message, according to the unverified report, was even more emotional and urgent than the first. The alleged content of the message suggested that the stakes were not just personal but familial. It reportedly communicated, "This isn't just about me. This is about my entire family. You need to stop this before it goes too far." Whether or not that message is accurate is impossible to verify, but the reaction to it made it feel real enough. Suddenly, the leaks and clips weren't just online content. They had tangible consequences. Real relationships could be affected. Real reputations could be damaged. Real lives could be altered permanently. The online drama had grown into a situation with real-world impact. And as the pressure escalated, the question on everyone's mind became, where is the line, and has it already been crossed? Then came yet another layer of escalation. Just when it seemed like things might settle, rumors about a final, unreleased piece of footage began circulating. The whispers were unconfirmed, but they carried enormous weight. According to these claims, there is one last clip, held back for reasons that remain unclear, that could fundamentally alter the public's perception of everything that had come before. What makes this so compelling is that it wasn't just speculation, it carried the weight of plausibility. People have seen the pattern of releases, they've seen the reaction to each wave, and they now understand that holding back a key piece of content is entirely within the strategy of those controlling it. So the question everyone is asking now is, what is in that final clip? Why has it been withheld? And most importantly, what happens if it finally sees the light of day? Because if the content that has already surfaced has caused chaos, controversy, and real concern, then what remains could be exponentially more impactful. The online reaction to these new clips was immediate and intense. Once they were released, the response didn't just grow, it multiplied. Every platform ignited simultaneously. Twitter X was flooded with debates, reactions, and speculation. TikTok became a hub of emotional breakdowns, commentary, and viral discussion. YouTube channels churned out analysis videos within minutes, dissecting every frame, every expression, every nuance. And across all these platforms, one question was constant: has this gone too far? Initially, people were still divided. Some argued that transparency was necessary, that truth, even uncomfortable truth, should be seen and acknowledged. Others were convinced that the release of these clips represented a clear crossing of ethical boundaries, that the people involved were being exposed in ways that went beyond what was appropriate or fair. But this time, the tone had shifted. The debate was no longer light or casual. It was serious, tense, and emotionally charged. This escalation represents more than just content being released online. It's a collision of public perception, private emotion, and strategic control. On one side, you have those seeking to reveal what they see as reality, a story that needs to be told. On the other, you have those trying to protect lives, reputations, and relationships that are being threatened by the uncontrolled dissemination of sensitive material. King Harris is at the center of this storm. His life, once largely private, has become the focal point of an online spectacle that few could have predicted. Every decision, every reaction, every attempt to intervene adds layers to the unfolding drama. And while the public watches, analyzes, and comments, the real human impact is happening behind the scenes, where the stakes are not virtual but painfully real. 50 Cent, meanwhile, remains a key figure in the escalation. His strategy, his timing, and his choices in how and when to release content have positioned him as both an observer and a driver of the chaos. Every clip released seems purposeful, calculated to maintain momentum and maximize attention, keeping the public engaged, reactive, and increasingly uneasy. And the anticipation of that final, unreleased clip adds a layer of suspense unlike anything that has come before. The uncertainty of what it contains, combined with the knowledge that its release could dramatically alter the narrative, keeps both fans and critics on edge. People aren't just watching for entertainment anymore. They're watching for revelation, for resolution, for the next turning point in a saga that continues to escalate with each passing moment. So here we are, in a space where online drama, family dynamics, and real-world consequences collide. The situation isn't just trending. It's evolving, intensifying, and creating a series of ripples that extend far beyond the initial clips. It's no longer merely about who said what or who was caught on camera. It's about intention, control, and the human cost of exposure in a world where private moments can become public property at the click of a button. And the truth is, we're still in the middle of it. Each new development brings more questions than answers, more tension than resolution. The audience watches, reacts, debates, and speculates, but the real drama unfolds privately, where each decision could have long-lasting consequences for those involved. In short, this isn't just a story about clips, leaks, or a documentary. It's a story about power, control, reputation, and the human impact of public scrutiny. It's about the intersection of personal vulnerability and strategic maneuvering. And it's about what happens when people we thought we knew are seen in ways we never expected, under circumstances that no one could have predicted. As of now, the narrative is still unfolding. There's anticipation of the next release, speculation about the content yet unseen, and growing concern over the consequences of what has already been exposed. In a sense, the story has no clear beginning or end. Every clip, every reaction, every leaked message adds complexity, shaping the ongoing narrative in ways that are impossible to fully predict. So as we watch, analyze, and speculate, one thing is clear. This is more than just online drama. It's a lesson in perception, control, and the power of media in shaping public understanding. And in the center of it all stands King Harris, caught between public exposure, private emotion, and forces beyond his control. Because at the end of the day, this is a story about real people, real relationships, and the consequences of turning private life into public spectacle. And as more content continues to surface, the stakes rise higher with every second. Every clip released, every post shared, and every reaction adds fuel to the fire, propelling the narrative forward in ways that are unpredictable, powerful, and potentially life-altering. And that's why this situation, right now, is as critical as it has ever been. Not because of what's already happened, but because of what could still happen. And with the potential of unreleased content looming, the tension isn't just going to remain, it's only going to grow. The content itself had started to feel different. It wasn't just clips anymore. It wasn't just entertainment. There was a sense that the exposure was turning personal. What once might have been casual viewing or even curiosity had now become a kind of uncomfortable witnessing. People were beginning to realize that what they were seeing wasn't just a story. It was someone's life being dissected, analyzed, and laid bare for public consumption. That shift changed everything. Suddenly, reactions weren't just about liking or sharing. They were about judgment, about ethics, about boundaries. On one side, defenders of 50 Cent spoke up immediately, arguing that the content, no matter how uncomfortable, was necessary. Comments flooded social media, saying things like, "Y'all only mad because it's uncomfortable. Truth ain't supposed to feel good. If it's real, it deserves to be seen." These statements gained traction. They went viral, shared across multiple platforms, and found supporters who echoed the sentiment that transparency, no matter how stark, was vital. But on the other side, the pushback was growing louder and sharper. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was concern, even outrage. Comments were harsh. "This isn't exposing the truth. This is exploiting people. Why is a family being turned into content like this? This is getting weird, and it has gone too far." And those reactions began to dominate the conversation. Discussions were no longer centered around clips or viral moments. Now people were debating ethics, personal boundaries, and whether those boundaries had been crossed. The intensity of the situation extended beyond the audience. The music industry itself started reacting in ways that had never been seen before. Gone were the days of subtle hints or cryptic social media posts. Now, artists and industry figures were making direct statements, live and in real time. One prominent rapper went live on Instagram and said plainly, "I don't care what anybody says. That ain't right. That ain't how you handle." Something like that. Hours later, another artist responded, challenging the narrative. "Y'all keep saying it ain't right, but nobody is explaining why it's wrong. If it's truth, let it be truth." This split reignited a public debate, but this time, the emotions were higher, more charged. People weren't just disagreeing, they were frustrated. Frustration arose from a growing realization that this wasn't simply a story unfolding online. It was a situation affecting real lives, and no one seemed to be taking responsibility for it. People weren't just reacting, they were questioning the entire framework of what was happening and why it was being shared at all. Then came one of the most viral reactions yet. A well-known media personality posted a statement that landed heavily on social media. "This whole situation feels like something we're not supposed to be seeing." That single observation changed the tone across platforms. Suddenly, viewers weren't just analyzing content, they were analyzing intent. The idea that this material might not have been meant for public eyes shook the audience in a way that no previous clip had. People began to question not only what they were seeing, but why they were being shown it. That realization added another layer of tension, turning casual viewers into online investigators. TikTok detectives in particular dove deep into the footage. They compared timestamps, analyzed edits, paused and replayed moments, and dissected the sequence of clips. Their goal was to understand what was real, what might have been intentionally omitted, and what context was being withheld. Some of these breakdowns went viral almost instantly, drawing millions of views. One analysis, for example, highlighted a clip that abruptly ended just before a key moment, suggesting that viewers were only being shown part of the story. Comments from these posts included phrases like, "Wait, this clip cuts off right before something important. They're only showing one side of this. It doesn't feel complete." As this narrative unfolded, it became clear that the situation was no longer just about clips. It was about context. It was about narrative control. Who decides what the public sees? Who decides which moments get edited in and which are left out? And who is responsible for the ethical implications of releasing such content? Amid all this chaos, one thing remained constant: silence. T.I. said nothing. King Harris said nothing. 50 Cent said nothing. That silence began to drive the public wild. Social media was flooded with demands for explanations. Comments like "Speak on it," "Say something," "Clear this up," became ubiquitous across platforms. People weren't just sharing opinions anymore, they were seeking answers. And yet no one responded. That silence intensified the tension even further. In situations like this, when something significant happens and no one speaks, the public assumes there's more going on behind the scenes. People speculated wildly. What were the intentions of those involved? What conversations were happening privately? Who was trying to control the narrative and who was being silenced? Then came another wave of escalation. High-profile voices, some who rarely commented on ongoing drama, began dropping subtle hints. Their posts suggested that this situation might not resolve quietly, that there was far more at stake than anyone realized. One viral comment said, "This isn't just drama, this can have real consequences." That single word, consequences, resonated deeply. The conversation shifted yet again. People were no longer simply observing for entertainment or even debate. They were watching for fallout, for the impact on the individuals involved, for what might happen next. Questions proliferated. Would T.I. respond? Would King Harris speak up? Would 50 Cent continue to push the narrative forward, or would private interventions change the course of events behind the scenes? At this point, no one could say for sure. And that uncertainty was a key part of the intensity, making the situation feel unpredictable, dangerous, and far from over. Just when it seemed like the story had reached its maximum tension, another twist arrived late that night. This wasn't a video clip nor a public statement, it was a leaked screenshot. The screenshot allegedly showed a private message, one purportedly from King Harris, in which he expressed desperation over the unfolding events. According to reposts, the message read, "This isn't just content to me. This is my real life. If more of this comes out, it's going to mess up everything around me." Adding to the tension, rumors suggest that 50 Cent has seen the message but chose not to respond. If true, that creates a standoff. One side is attempting to halt the situation, appealing for restraint and consideration. The other side is continuing to release content, driving the narrative forward without pause. That kind of dynamic is high stakes and explosive, making it impossible to predict what will happen next. Now consider this. If the next wave of content is already scheduled, we're essentially watching a story unfold in real time, with every post, every clip, and every reaction deliberately contributing to the escalation. The uncertainty about the next release only heightens the anticipation. People aren't just watching, they're bracing for impact, trying to guess what will happen, and debating how far is too far. The tension feels palpable because the stakes are real, and the consequences could be enormous. So let's break it down. King Harris allegedly tried to intervene, appealing privately to prevent further fallout. 50 Cent, however, may be continuing to push the narrative, keeping the public engaged and the drama alive. Meanwhile, T.I. remains silent, leaving speculation to run wild. Every decision or non-decision carries weight. Every reaction or lack thereof adds pressure. And the audience, already split between those defending the exposure and those calling it exploitation, is waiting to see who will act first and what the result will be. The questions are endless. Will the next release clarify everything, finally bringing some sense of resolution? Or will it escalate even further, introducing new revelations and intensifying public scrutiny? And what happens if this cycle continues? If more clips drop, more rumors spread, and silence persists, the narrative could spiral even further, with consequences that extend beyond the internet into real life, impacting relationships, careers, and reputations. This is where the tension becomes almost unbearable. The audience isn't just passively watching, they are emotionally invested, analyzing every development, debating every ethical question, and speculating on the intentions behind each release. The story has become multi-layered, part documentary, part real-life drama, part social experiment, and part ethical debate. And at its center are real people whose lives are being scrutinized in ways that are deeply personal and intensely public. Now think about what this means for the next release. If the previous clips caused chaos, exposed tensions, and triggered heated debates, the next part could change everything. It could flip perceptions, challenge assumptions, and force the audience to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Every online conversation, every viral clip, and every social media post will suddenly be part of a much larger puzzle, with viewers struggling to piece together the story as it unfolds. This situation is a perfect storm of modern media dynamics. The combination of viral content, public speculation, industry commentary, and personal stakes creates a pressure cooker environment. Every silent moment from the key figures adds fuel to the fire. Every new leak or rumor intensifies the scrutiny, and every reaction, whether supportive or critical, reinforces the unpredictability of what comes next. So here's the bottom line: this story is far from finished. The next wave of content, whatever it might be, could be the one that changes everything. The stakes are higher than ever. The tension is at its peak, and the audience, split and watching closely, is ready for the next development. Whether it clarifies, escalates, or completely redefines the narrative, one thing is certain: the story is far from over. Now, it's time to ask the critical questions. Do you believe King Harris actually reached out to try to stop this? Or is that just another rumor designed to add drama? Do you think 50 Cent is exposing the truth? Or is he pushing too far just to keep attention on the situation? Where do we draw the line between storytelling and exploitation, between truth and invasion of privacy? And perhaps most importantly, what are the real-world consequences of every clip, every post, and every decision made by those involved? The conversation isn't just theoretical, it's happening everywhere across every platform in real time. People are debating, analyzing, and speculating, and every moment matters. The story is evolving, the stakes are growing, and the next release could completely upend everything we think we know. The tension, the uncertainty, and the stakes all converge to create a narrative that is as unpredictable as it is compelling. If you've followed this far, then you're fully locked in. You've witnessed the escalation, felt the tension, and seen the stakes rise. And the next update, whenever it arrives, could change the story entirely. Whether it's a clip, a message, or a public response, the next move has the power to redefine everything. So here's the truth. The story is not over. The next twist could be the most significant yet. The silence could break, the narrative could flip, and the consequences could reach further than anyone anticipated. Every detail matters, every speculation counts, and every reaction shapes what comes next. Stay alert, stay watching, because when this story continues, IT won't just be entertainment. It will be a real-time lesson in power, control, and the unpredictability of human behavior in the digital age. And trust me, you won't want to miss a second.